It's amazing how whenever there's an election in Iran, everybody thinks, oh, it's just going to be more of the same. And that way, people are always surprised.
People were very confident that the opposition was going to win. They were very, very confident.
So people expected that the vote would be for an upset victory for the reformists, or at least that it would be very, very close.
But election day comes. The night of June 12th, it's announced that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad wins in a landslide. And I think a lot of people were very surprised.
And I think that is what really set the country ablaze politically. The huge discrepancy between the way the officials immediately came out and declared President Ahmadinejad the overwhelming winner, the discrepancy between that and what people were hearing at the polls.
We watched the riot police rush the students and the young people as they set fire to garbage cans, as they poured into the streets and were chanting to get their vote back. I have never witnessed these kinds of scenes in Tehran in the 20 years that I've been covering this country.
I don't care who you spoke with before the elections in June 2009. Nobody predicted we would see this after Election Day. Within hours, you had protesters, very angry protesters, come out in the streets. These were protesters who didn't believe that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad had won in a landslide. They called the vote a sham. And they expressed their anger by coming out into the streets.
It was very spontaneous. It started with people, just a handful of people gathering in different locations.
Hey, listen, push me in with Christian right away.
And it became larger and larger and larger and larger, louder and louder and louder.
It wasn't just one group of people. It was men, it was women, it was young, it was old, conservative, progressive, upper class, middle class, lower socioeconomic levels, all calling for change.
I think there was a sense of hope and empowerment and rage. And when people went out in the streets and challenged the security forces and challenged the taboos and began chanting things like death to the dictator, there was a sense of liberation that you were kind of hearing.
You looked in their eyes and they had hope for the first time in a long time that maybe this is our opportunity to bring change to Iran, to have more freedom, to have a more representative government.
Protesters were actually very defiant. They were not afraid to challenge the police. They were not afraid to challenge the authority. The government and police realized that this could turn quite large. It could be quite disturbing to them. And that is when the police and the government decided to crack down on these protesters.
The authorities reacted swiftly. The authorities reacted hard and harshly.
These security forces didn't discriminate between men and women. If you stood in their way, they were going after you. So there were times in the streets when there was a rush of besieged security forces chasing after these protesters on these roaring motorcycles. You had men, women, older women, women in chador running away. It was just an amazing scene. And sometimes some of them got caught and they got a beating. They got a severe beating. We spent days there running away, protecting ourselves from these security forces, on motorcycles, on sidewalks, coming at you with batons. It was surreal. It was heart-pumping. There was a lot of tension.
I'm still hearing chants. I'm still hearing tear gas being fired, but we have to retreat now because it is getting a little bit ugly.
Today, on June 19th, Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, came out and addressed Friday prayers. And a lot of people were eager to see what he would say.
some supporters of some candidates should also know, should be sure that the Islamic establishment will never manipulate people's votes and commit treason. There is a difference of 11 million votes. How can vote rigging happen? If some people have their doubts and if they have some proof and evidence, then it should be dealt with through legal ways. Everything that should be dealt with only through legal channels. I will never accept illegal innovations.
He said Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was the legitimate winner, and he sent a clear message to the opposition movement not to come out and protest. The Supreme Leader said, if you come out and protest and create problems, you're going to pay for it. It was a clear message to the opposition movement to end it. So what happens the next day on June 20th? They come out again in defiance of the Supreme Leader. So that was a key date that really illustrated that this was not something that was fleeting. This was not a movement that was only going to last a few days, because they came out in defiance of the Supreme Leader, something that was unheard of up until then.
We'd seen the beatings, but we hadn't seen a shooting, and we hadn't seen death. I think when we first heard about Neda, it was quite shocking.
Neda was a young woman who came out on June 20th, and she was part of the crowds that were protesting, and she was shot and killed. Her dying moments were captured on a cell phone camera, and she instantly became an icon, a symbol of the opposition movement.
That image of the death of this young woman on a street in Tehran made a huge impact worldwide. It symbolized what people were thinking about what was happening in Iran.
That gave the opposition movement some serious momentum. She became a rallying cry. She became an instant icon, a symbol of what they were struggling for and what they were willing to sacrifice.